On December 7, 1941, the Japanese Air Navy led a surprise military attack on American military base in Pearl Harbor, marking the beginning of American involvement in the ongoing World War. 120,000 Japanese Americans called the American West Coast their home at the time, the majority of whom were American citizens. But fears of national security and espionage led the government to allow the internment of Japanese Americans, citizens or not, in internment camps. How did they end up at this point?
That the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
People often say that anti-Japanese sentiment began with Pearl Harbor, but in reality it went way farther back than that. Japanese communities began to immigrate from the United States in the late 1800s, mostly for contract labor, concentrated in places like California. Along with Chinese immigrants, Japanese Americans were targeted with anti-immigration laws such as the 1907 Gentlemen's Agreement, which effectively banned Japanese immigration. San Francisco even required Japanese children to go to segregated schools. When World War II started, anti-Japanese sentiment only got worse and worse. States began to ban Japanese people from buying land. Many Americans adopted the rhetoric of hunting down the Japanese, and propaganda depicted the Japanese as subhuman and barbaric, even in children's cartoons.
To demonstrate how to constructing the delicious Japanese club sandwich. Slice a bread ration card, so. Place a piece of a meat ration card, so. Then eat them. Oh, yum yum sandwich. After eating, you were enjoying a crab.
By 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 and established the War Relocation Authority. Japanese Americans were given less than a month to prepare to leave their homes with only a few belongings. While the camps they were taken to are commonly referred to as internment camps, the name itself is arguably a misnomer since it implies that those taken were not U.S. citizens, while in reality nearly two-thirds of those forcibly detained were citizens.
Now the actual migration got underway. The Army provided fleets of vans to transport household belongings and buses to move the people to assembly centers. Santa Anita Racetrack, for example, suddenly became a community of about 17,000 persons.
Conditions in the camps were bad. They lived in barracks as prisoners, surrounded by watchtowers, eating poor food, and even had to go without running water at times. Still, people at the camps tried their best to persist and live their life as normal. Ironically, the American military even used Japanese American troops in the war to fight, yet refused to grant them freedom and even segregated them in the army.
America's Japanese finds its highest expression in the thousands who are in the United States Army. Almost half of them are in a Japanese-American combat team.
There was resistance, however.
Said, since you violated the military order, the bail is $5,000.
Fred Korematsu, an American-born citizen of Japanese descent from California, appealed his conviction for resisting the order. He went all the way to the Supreme Court before the court ruled 6-3 against Korematsu under the justification that Japanese Americans would side their loyalties with Japan and that national security ought to come first. The camp slowly began shutting down in 1942, with the last one closing in 1946. Congress formally apologized and gave reparations of $20,000 to thousands of Japanese Americans. But the impacts of the camps didn't end then. They are ongoing to this day. Residents lost close to $400 million in property, survivors have extremely high rates of disorders like PTSD and exceedingly high suicide rates, and intergenerational trauma continues.
They were taken from orphanages and hospitals. They were taken if they were found to have even 1/16 Japanese blood. That means they were taken if they had a great-great-grandparent who was Japanese. They were taken regardless of age, from the oldest to the very youngest.
I want to stress the fact that this was done by presidential order, and something like this could happen again anytime to any group of people if their religion or ethnicity disagrees with whatever the political nature of our government at the time.
It has been more than 80 years since the last camp closed, but as less and less survivors remain alive to tell their story, it's more important than ever that we keep their stories alive for them. Even when the history is ugly, we have a responsibility to never forget it.
Powers in their treatment of Americans who fall into their hands.